Can you answer this IGCSE Biology past paper question about species, relationships, and DNA similarities? Let's get started. Take a moment to think about this. Which species do you think has the least similar DNA-based sequences? I'll give you 15 seconds. Alright, put your answer in the comment section. The correct answer is C, which means species R is the correct answer. Let me explain why. DNA-based sequences can be compared to determine how closely related species are. Species that share a more recent common ancestor have more similar DNA sequences because they haven't had as much time to accumulate differences. Let's take a look at our question again. In the question, P and Q share a recent common ancestor, so we can put that into a diagram like this. P and Q share a link to a common ancestor. However, it's not clearly mentioned who the ancestor in the question. Therefore, let's put that ancestor's name as X. Then, S developed recently from P. So, S and P's DNA are very similar too. This is more like another species that has evolved from P. Therefore, I can label S as a different species that has evolved from P like this. Now in the question, it is clearly mentioned that P and Q have a more recent common ancestor than either species has with species R, which means R doesn't have a very direct link to P and Q. Therefore, R can be labeled aside from P and Q, which is not directly linked to any ancestor. When you look at this diagram, you can clearly see P and Q share one ancestor. So P and Q have a very common DNA-based sequence or similar base sequence, and species S have developed recently from P, which means S has a very similar DNA-based sequence to P, which means only the species R must be quite different from P, Q, and S. Therefore, the answer is C. To understand this better, let's think about humans and our relatives. For this question, let's only consider humans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and orangutans. Pay attention to this diagram. According to the diagram, humans and chimpanzees share a more recent common ancestor. So, our DNA is very similar. Humans and chimpanzees have a very similar DNA sequence. What about gorillas? Gorillas share a common ancestor with humans and chimpanzees, but it's not as close as humans and chimpanzees together, right? Therefore, this ancestor does not link humans as close as chimpanzees. So, gorillas have less similar DNA compared to humans and chimpanzees. Orangutans, on the other hand, they diverged even earlier. They have a common ancestor with humans which evolved much earlier in the family tree. So, their DNA is less similar to humans than gorillas are. So, according to that, chimpanzees are more closely linked to humans, and then gorillas come, and then orangutans come. Thanks for watching. See you in the next question.